Hi, so hello to everyone, whether you're joining us live on Artabax's Twitch channel, where we are streaming this episode of our podcast, or whether you're watching on YouTube on the 20 Law Pro channel. Welcome back to 20 Lawcast. I am LD, Lorcana Deck Lists on Twitter, and I'm joined once again by my wonderful co-hosts, Artabax and HarlanSweete.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How has your week in Lorcana been?
Quite good. I think I'm as happy as I can get with this format. What makes me a little bit happier, although it's not the best format I think we had in the short life of Lorcana, but for that I'm okay.
Well, as long as you're a bit happy, then that's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
Harlan, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. I'm just happy if I can get 2-0 wins versus red, purple, and blue steel. So, that fills me with a lot of joy. And I'm learning content creating is not very easy, and it's a lot of effort. I've been doing that a lot recently with the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been very busy. We've been seeing lots of videos coming from you and lots of people with nice things to say about your blue steel guides.
Yes, yeah, it's been nice reception. I mean, of course, I'm quite critical, so I assume at the minute I put that up there, that all the comments of it, this is terrible. It's not how you play blue steel. Taking any advice, but it's been such the opposite. And of course, I'm no master of decks, so just take my advice or leave it. I'm not going to force you to. If you learn anything, that's great.
I've held back from posting those things. Every time I've typed them out, I don't click send.
Every night you sat there.
What hateful thing can I say to him today? Yeah. That's a very good lesson in general. But yeah, really good to see content streams still coming from you, Artabax. Lots of YouTube content coming from you, Harlan. In spite of the sort of Pixelborn going away, which has obviously made the content creation game a little bit harder for us. You're both adapting very well and doing a great job.
I'll say for me though, it somehow got better. It's almost like I didn't realize how big the void was content, because there's a lot of us have moved to the webcams. A lot of us couldn't. So people just want to consume Lorcana. So instead of playing Pixelborn, I guess the next best thing is watching Lorcana. So
yeah, sure.
It's been really great in the community.
I think the webcam thing is easier than I expected. It's quite it's okay, but of course it's more exhausting. Yeah, exhausting maybe the wrong word, but you can't make it for 6 hours or something. Pixelborn you can really grind for hours, but this is a little bit After 2 or 3 matches, you don't want to carry on anymore.
You do have to sort of set the time aside, don't you, and get your setup all sort of done. And I played thousands of games of Pixelborn. There's no surprise to anybody. Most of it was played on my sofa.
Yeah.
Split attention, but this is when you play webcam games. It's a lot more focused. You're sat down. Yeah. There's nothing else really going on but that. You are.
It used to be with Pixelborn. It'd be like, I've got 30 or 40 minutes before I have to go get a bus and do something. I might as well play some Pixelborn games. But now it's like, I need to set aside a certain amount of time, find players I want to play with on webcams and play them. But I guess with Pixelborn Connect and even with Real Play Network, like you can just find anyone.
Also for us competitive players, I think it's even maybe even better because we make more focused testings. At least that's my experience. In the past we just played Pixelborn and then we played sometimes against Mufasa, then against it. We did not make, okay, how do I beat Green Steel? And now sometimes I play with my girlfriend and she plays Green Steel and we make 4 matches in a row, and then you get more clue about the matchups, how you are performing against some specific matchups. And maybe for us it's better, but to get competitive for casuals, it's harder without Pixelborn, I think, because they have no connection to. We are in our bubble. Yeah.
You've got that, like, it is that thing, because I used to go on Pixelborn and I'd be like, right, I'm going to test this new tech out for green steel into red blue. Then you wouldn't play red blue for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was a waste of a test. And now, you can go target it. But I think you've mentioned a good point. I think the gap between casual and competitive is going to be just bigger now with store champs coming up. Because, like you say, we've gone away and targeted testing. We've put all the work in. They don't even have a client to play on anymore. They might play at their local league once a week if they go. So I think that gap's actually going to be a bit bigger this time around.
Keen to move us on a little bit. You did mention set championships, which is what we're heading into and what we're all kind of here to talk about. Harlan last time around, you said that you wanted to play as many set championships as possible this time. This time you have 4 weekends to do that.
Yes.
How many are you going to play?
So I've missed. I'm not doing Bochum. That's to make just so I can do Bologna and Birmingham just logistically.
Yep.
So I have all
sense.
8 booked as of right now. I have every weekend possible booked. Mostly going with local groups, and then I think a couple that I won't be. I was going to go to the Axion one. I believe
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I already had the Sunday booked, but I thought I'd do the Saturday just because I didn't know what Axion was, the Lorcana Fest, but it
Yeah, sure.
seems to be a big thing. No, bin that off, and I'm going to go do a store champs now. Try and get another Ursula. But I really liked them. I think I did the regional, and I really liked that as well. I loved meeting Artabax. I loved meeting everyone, and the atmosphere was great. But I'll admit the store champs were really quite special. I thought, again, to go see these like some stores like have like local heroes sort of thing,
Yep.
and I loved all the interaction because whenever you went on Twitter, it was like people being really happy holding up an Ursula or holding up a Stitch at that point, and that was just great. Whereas with regionals, it was like everyone posting the cut they missed or like
Yeah,
or them
that's true.
dropping. You know what I mean? And they still had fun, and it was still great. And we understand how a regional has to work. But the store champs, it was like if you hit enough and you only had to make top 4, there was a lot of people just really happy with that experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
That's a really good observation. On set championship weekends, Twitter was just full of happiness.
Yeah,
and,
it's full of joy.
and on challenge weekends, it's full of sadness. Apart from like a few people are really, really
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
There was a few people who'd like miss a top 8 and then they'd do a store champs the next day and they'd get a Stitch, and it was like, yeah, it was that nice, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But regionals,
totally.
it was like either rocketing out unhappy, and then as you say, like 16 people who are thousands of pounds up in money and really happy with themselves.
Yeah. Artabax, how about you? How are you booked in for lots of set championships?
4 or 5, I think we do. Yeah, it's
Okay.
enough. The excitement is bigger for this, maybe bigger for the store champions, the championships than for Bochum. I don't want to drive there again, and then you do much to get there, and
The cost to reward ratio is very
Yeah.
different, right? When I went to my set champs, it was 2 weekends last time, and I had to miss the first weekend, so I played 2 the second weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday. Both of them were within 30 minutes of my house. I
Yeah.
paid nothing to get there. I paid next to nothing to play, and then I sold what I won for over £1,000. Whereas the Challenger Bochum could be the opposite. I might spend £1,000 and receive 0. It's just
I
looking
didn't
like the
blame
most likely outcome.
I didn't blame the people who hit the side events pretty hard, because it was like, all right, well, I didn't win any of the top prizes. Let's try and make a gain back on this, and make sure this weekend wasn't for nothing. So they did all the
Yeah.
side events and got
It's good
fair
that that's
enough.
an option.
Yeah.
But I think
And,
sadly that Ursula will be way less worth than Stitch. I think. What do you think about it?
I think so too.
Yeah. I've heard some people say they like it more and they like the map. I like the map more. Aesthetically, I like it more, but I think for the character they chose and it being the second one, I think it will drop in value. Yeah, and also there's more, isn't there? This time we've got double the amount of store champs than we did in the previous one, so there'll actually just be more copies out there. But yeah, I think it will drop value a bit.
I mean, for playability, it's nearly the same. They are both niche characters, so
Yeah. I think I put the cute tax though on Stitch. People like cute characters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people like Ursula very much, but as you said, they're both side characters.
I like Ursula, just not purple ones.
No,
I like the green ones just fine. They're great.
Or if they made it a playable card, like a 2-drop Ursula or something. Oh,
You're going to make people angry suggesting that Shift Ursula isn't playable.
Oh yeah, well,
by the power level of the card, 2-drop Ursula had to be legendary or something. I don't understand why it's uncommon. But yeah.
If it was, the green steel decks would be
Oh my god.
$1,000. Yeah, that would be really crazy. Okay, so you're both attending lots of set championships. I also will be. Not as many as 8, because I have Bochum next weekend. Then I have 2 local to me. I'm going to attend 1 other, plus 1 that is a bit of a surprise. In a couple of weeks, I'm staying with my partner's family in the middle of the countryside. And then I looked at the cool map Brad Nelson put together on Melee, where you can just visually see where the set champs are. And there's one just in the middle of nowhere in Wales. Just happened to be nearby, so that's a real nice bonus. But yeah, looking forward to it. Like you say, it was a really good experience and just a very nice environment, playing for good stakes, but in a store setting is just really cool. So the big question for both of you, where are we with decks? I suppose, Harlan, it's probably not going to surprise anyone, your deck choice, but maybe you will. So are you locked in?
The blue steel is getting foiled out, so it will have to see some store champion plays. But as I did with the last one, I brought red purple in the end to 2 of them, and it was just consistent. I remember with the first blue steel store champs, it was just a couple of times it bricked. 2 dimes, 2 holy worlds, and a Zeus in hand, and it's like I can't do anything with this. And I just never feel that at red purple. I just feel like you mulligan for a curve rather than I need to get a ramp to win this game or I need to get this card. It was just like, okay, I can play these cards and I'm most likely going to find a curve and win this game. But yeah, I'll definitely bring blue steel, and I would like to get some wins on it as well, just to rep the blue boys, really.
You are representing for the gang now.
Yeah, I really like the story of blue steel in set 4 because it was sort of, I don't know, I'd lost faith in it at the end of set 3, and then it didn't look like it was going to do well because red blue was so popular. And then it was like, hold on, it actually does quite well into green steel, and it still can beat red purple, and we somehow seem to be all right versus red blue again. So it's I'm really liking the story of the deck as well.
But that's what I ask myself sometimes, because I don't know the matchup too much. Why is it good against red blue again? Is it just aerial, or what is it?
A lot of people aren't even playing the aerial. When I picked it up and Pixelborn was still around and we were testing and stuff. For red blue to make a lot of room, they cut things that used to beat us hard. So Hops is gone. You don't see Judy Hops anymore, and that used to always be an issue because we'd race for a dime and set it up, and they can sort of do a Judy Hops and stall because they're red control, so they can still win in the late game. So we couldn't do that, but they took that out. We still play Hardhead Beast, and then like Tremaine was getting dropped from their list. It seems to be back again, but Tremaine was getting dropped. So like, if you could count the and they were dropping B preps. Do you remember for a while they didn't even?
Yeah.
Of course, their lists have reacted again, but I also think it's down to we get 8 popsicles and they get 4. That's
a good reason. Yeah, that's a good reason.
If I look at my list. So we're going by card difference. The aerial's great. It does seem quite powerful, but a lot of people just don't play it. The only other difference is we've got 4 more popsicles. That's pretty much it. So yeah, it seems to be all these little things, and I wouldn't say we beat them hard, but it just doesn't feel like it felt in set 3. It feels a lot more fair. Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting that so much of that shift has come just from card choices. It's not like any of these cards became worse. People just stopped playing with them to find space for new things. And then they slowly realized, whoa, that thing we cut because we thought it didn't do anything was actually the glue holding this entire deck together. And we now lose this matchup without it.
They made room for Big Sisu, and you can't argue that card's just brilliant. Probably one of the reasons why green purple. You used to beat that deck quite well, didn't you, red blue? And not to rub salt in a wound here, but you probably used to beat them quite well. And now they have this card that took out 90% of your characters, doesn't it, really? And
there's 3 Lorden on the board, and then
and then it quests for 3 afterwards. And of course, it takes out our Cogsworth, our Hirams, and anything else really that's low. So it's powerful. But yeah, it seems to somehow the cuts they've made and the more popsicles for consistency, it seems to even out to, I'd say, 45% win chance versus them now. It's not this drastically low win chance you had anymore. It seems quite nice, yeah. But they still are in favour, I think.
So even your bad matchup is fine, and you can, in a lot of situations, I imagine skill difference you're going to get there against the average pilot.
And like, if you ask most blue steel players who are bringing it for store champs what they're prepping for, it's mainly castle red purple, and it's not even on the play. It's mainly just on the draw because Sisu Flynn castle is just so impactful. I know Blue Steel was having an issue with it. I don't know other decks, but I was wondering if any other deck is also just struggling with Flynn into Sisu into Castle, because it's just such a strong line to play.
People hold up a few linear openings as kind of being defining this meta at the moment, whether it's your Diablo shift lines or whether it's Flynn Sisu Castle or whether it's Porpsicle, One Jump Ahead, Hiram.
Yeah.
Every one of these major decks that makes up what people are kind of dubbing the Big Four, they all have one of those linear openings, and each one of them is uniquely hard for one of the other decks to answer.
Yeah.
So you kind of you're in the position where the thing that they're trying to hurt you with is red purple's good opening. That's tougher for you.
But I think,
than some of the others.
Yeah, I think you have to just take that as a blue steel player on the draw. This exactly line. I think you just have to take that. I mean, that's so unlikely. I mean, it's not super unlikely, but you have to have exactly these 3 cards, and you are on the draw. So I don't know if it's worth taking to try to win that games still.
What I've done is I've played quite a lot of blue steel even without Pixelboard, and yeah, I've gone up to the point where it's like you're so heavily teched, you've got an arsenal to fight, like you've got a war machine to fight it, and it doesn't seem to work because you could somehow even miss the draw on that. Playing 4x of a card doesn't mean you're going to get it in your hand, and then you lose, and then your card's janky for your other matchup. I think you are correct. It gets to the point where you just have to accept that if they do this combo, they've got it. You're probably going to beat them on the play because you've done ramp to 5, sing whole new world, and they're going to equally complain about that play as much as you're complaining about.
I think that's the most likely 1-1. I think in the meta is blue steel against red purple, or you can argue every mirror match is the most likely 1-1. But other than mirror matches, I think it's so often a 1-1. The player on the play is so crazy favored. It feels for me. That's
to the point where you just have to go in and go, right, I've got to beat them on the draw. Let's hope they just play a rabbit instead of a castle. Say, like, let's hope variants come in, and because I don't know, you can tech quite heavy for it, but it still doesn't mean you're going to win it. And then you've got a heavy tech thing for a situation you didn't even win. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the tech choices in blue steel, because I'm about as far from a blue steel pilot as a player can get, I'd say. The untrained mind thinks, surely just fill this deck with one of silver bullets, because you're going to draw 30 cards by turn 3 anyway.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. That's not how it goes, but I think you see loads of cards, but obviously you can't rely on drawing that stuff, and it's probably a bad road to go down.
I think blue steel is probably one of them. I mean, probably all the wheel decks are amber steel as well, but if you're a wheel deck, you can likely play one-offs a bit more commonly, and especially in set 3 where we played a lot of Develop Your Brains and Gastons, because you also had scrying. So playing one-offs didn't feel that bad, because it was like, well, I actually do have a good chance of finding it now. So yeah, I tried a one-off Titans, and it was like, whenever I drew it, it was, I don't need any more Titans. This deck's perfect. I drew it on that one turn and it did the one thing, but it's like, if you want the variables to be better, you have to up it. And then it gets to a point where you don't want too many, because then why has your deck got 4 Rise of Titans in it? So 2 has felt a safe choice for me. And then of course you've still got Zeus and a hit. Yeah, it's the one thing I do feel about blue steel, it's such a teched meta deck. So it's very heavy and it fights in the meta. But if you go against some janky turn sideways Tiana deck, probably not going to know what to do there. and it's going to have. I dropped a game once in the Store Champs because Tiana open hand, and I thought, I did not think you were going to play Tiana that turn.
Now I lose. Cool.
I lose. Yeah, I have no removal for it. Let it go doesn't work.
But there are other things where red purple. Honestly, I think there will always be some things you're not prepared to. I mean, the most red purple lists are now cutting their one drops to a really scary low amount to 4 or something, and then if you're on the draw against Malefic's Pinocchio opening, then you think, oh my gosh, I want to play 12 one drops. So that's I think we have to take something.
Yeah, you do have to concede something to these.
Yeah.
You will lose those random edge case games the more you optimize towards beating the meta, won't you? That's going to happen a little more. It's a little more forgiving with decks like Green Steel, which is what I've been playing a ton of this set. Really hard to lose those to random stuff, because you just have so much strong removal in the early game. Your opening is so linear, you get to execute the same way against a lot of things, and it's powerful in kind of any environment. And normally when it comes to sort of losing random games against hyper aggro and stuff like that,
all the 3 decks we've mentioned and we're probably playing, it's like you do have just removal, and I think I remember in set 3 though we went really just hyper ramp blue steel, and it was like one fire the cannons in there. They could have an evasive just questing, and would get them like 5 lore before you grab the swords like a Pascal. You know what I mean? But now it's like there's just so much heavy removal in there, and I think red purple got like Brawl is nice because you can do removal earlier on, and Green Steel's got a steel package like. Let the storm rage on Ursula. That's one of the reasons why I swapped to that deck and played it at the end of set 3 was Let the Storm Rager on Ursula, I think, is the best going second in the game right now.
Oh, it's very good.
Two card draw, 4 out damage out there. It hasn't even cost you your ink turn, so you've still got that. I think that was one of the reasons that brought me to that deck.
Well, speaking of red purple a little bit, Artabax, I want to pick your brain on your deck choice. Last time we spoke, you were enjoying red purple. Is that still true?
That's so true. It's more true than last time. Came that way that I predicted it. That red purple is a that red purple is a really good contender in the meta game, and I think it still is. I'm happy right now for the deck because I think it's quite similar to Blue Steel. I learned a lesson from Lil that I don't want to play a deck anymore that has polarizing matchups because I don't want to be afraid to go on each table and think please be no Amber Steel, please be no Purple Steel, and it was the case. I mean, you can also be lucky and get 6 red blues, but the red purple like it is now can beat everything, can lose everything like it always was. It was always this deck that can beat everything and can lose to everything. So hopefully you can get through the first rounds by just skill gap, hopefully, and then if you win the first 3 rounds, you should be in a decent position to somehow close it out. I couldn't imagine to bring something else. I can only win with gold, that's the problem for me. There's no other. I cannot win any game without a gold, so Blue still has no gold, Green still has no gold. Oh, that's the problem. I have to play with purple. No, I think
Purple Steel is an option.
Oh, Purple Steel. I played Purple Steel. I think Purple Steel is better than people think. I think still that Purple Steel is very draw play dependent. It's very, very strong on the play and kind of weak on the draw. So I would expect a lot of draws in 2-game format. So that's not too appealing for me.
Yeah, that's not a huge green light against the deck if you expect it to draw all the way through.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a warning sign.
The Forbidden Mountain had shout out to them had a stream on last night, and in the top 4 it was a purple steel versus a red purple, and it was really interesting to watch because in a sense it's quite similar to the same deck, but red purple has decided to opt for the late game removal and the big red things, whereas purple steel has gone for the more mid-rangey at the point where I think the purple steel had to gain a certain amount of lore by a certain amount of turns to have a chance of winning. It had to have made a dent on it. And of course, because you're on steel, they get no value out of their Flynn. They actually said the most optimal thing to do is just ink the Flynn. If you're so in such a strong spot that you're just basically saying you have to ink one of your strong cards, that's a really good play. That's a really good position to be in.
For example, Robin Hood Shift is completely different on the play and on the draw. On the play, it's nearly unbeatable. On the draw, it's nearly a fair play. On the play, it's not a fair play. It's too strong on the play because it's 3/6 on turn 3 that quests at least 2 times against nearly every deck, and then it replaces itself still. But on the draw, it's nearly a fair play. It's nearly a fair play, and that makes it so much worse because Robin Hood Shift should be an unfair thing. It's the most unfair thing that Purple Steel can do. I think if you can say that.
Doing the same with Green Steel when it gets off. If I'm on the draw and they bucky Robin Hood Shift, as you say, they've made you discard, and then they just quest for 2, 4, 6 before you even get a chance to do anything about it. And it's such a strong card on the play. But on the draw, it also does feel fair. It just feels like, this is an appropriate time that it should have hit the board. It's
good, but it's not. What do I do against that? So then on the draw, the turn afterwards, it's one turn, and then you can play Maui, and then it's because it's then it's your turn 4 and then turn 5. So it just quests twice. I mean, it's still good, but significantly worse, I think, on the draw than on the play. But Ursula, for example, Stormrage on is maybe it's better on the draw. It's so crazy. It's at least it's for both extraordinary.
You can use
good.
it on both, but it's on the draw. How much value you get on that turn. You're behind. It's just so, I think it's so strong.
The only downside to being on the draw with that is that the turn 3 now against a lot of things is a lot more of a sweat. If you play your 3-drop Ursula, it's basically an extra window for all the removal opens up on turn 3, right? So it's just yeah, maybe they have the brawl or whatever, or they can do that right away, whether you're on the play or on the draw. But the net gets wide, and there are more things that just take this out before you do it. So it's great on the play or on the draw, but I don't know. I always feel safer with it on the play, even though it mostly just catches a brawl anyway, which is kind of what it's there to do as much as anything else.
But I wouldn't, because most people think red, purple, blue, red, blue steel, and green steel are S tier, or how you can say that. And then there's a large gap, but I don't think there's a large gap. I think there's purple steel not too far behind, and then amber steel, I would say, is also not too far behind of those four. I think.
How do you feel about Mufasa? Because that was getting on people's tier list. I think Zan Snide put it as third. And I thought it was really good at the start as well. But it's
can be. I didn't see it for a while now. Maybe that's true. I didn't test it. I didn't see it. It totally fell out of my radar. So maybe.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know from a Mufasa player, someone who's kind of spent a lot of time with it, how it feels, and if it has dropped off, why. I mean, all I could speculate is before Pixelborn shut down, my stats this season against Mufasa with Green Steel were absurd.
Yeah, that's
I could.
So
maybe that matchup.
I think they have to play brawls and thieves and all that.
They have no purple draw, and then they have to wait for the red removal, don't they? Really?
Yeah.
I think that's.
They have to play brawl and thief, maybe both, and their draw power is against steel not very reliant because of these these characters die very easy. That needs to get healed by Rapunzel. I mean, if you play the Mother Gothel, Green Steel has no problem to remove it if it wants to.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, I want to say I'm still sad for my green purple baby.
Yeah,
because I think it's not good anymore. And not good is too much maybe, but for me it's clearly worse than other choices that do nearly the same. The problem against red blue, it's got significantly worse against red blue because just of big Sisu, because the people don't understand how good big Sisu is sometimes, because in the past I could just force them to be prep and make them be prep, and I want it because they need to spend their turn. And then I know I will not lose this game anymore because I'm in the advantage then. But Big Sisu is such an unfair player against Green Purple because it just wipes the whole board, and then it's still a tempo shift for them because they have still their board, and then she quests for 3, and oh my gosh, you can only bounce it, and
The matchup got so much more in depth with blue still into red purple because it's we have to get something to soak up a thing, but even now you can brawl it, then play the B King or sing the B King. So you could brawl a Mickey or brawl a whatever, a Hiram, and then play B King to take out the 5 or 6 drop or dime target. So it's just got so much more layers to it now.
It is a total game changer. I played some red purple. I'm by no means a master of it. I played some this set, but the thing that struck with me was you're so used to this deck being, it 1-for-1s a lot of the time. You find some windows to create some extra value off your bounce stuff, but you're generally removing one thing a turn until you get to your Be Prepared turn. But with these B King lines, often taking those 2 things out instead of one, like you say, Medusaing something or Tremaining it and then seeing a B King, was creating windows for castles earlier, and you were playing suddenly the flow of the game felt much more like playing green purple last set, something like that, to that effect. Where you were tempoing out, you had a way of just randomly clearing a board on turn 6 or something. You happened to run them out of everything, and you can, instead of even needing to sweep the board, you're now just slamming castles, and you've got so far ahead.
The red purple matchup against green steel is way better than people say. Most people don't understand, I think, how to play it correctly. So I think it gets close to 50-50 as it can get. Yeah.
You're going to get at Store Champs a lot of red purple players who haven't practiced it for whatever reason. Pixelborn's down, and they're going to slap their Flynn down on turn 2 with pride.
That's a losing play. They don't understand.
I know, but they will do it. I think it will happen quite a lot.
That's Green Steel will be a good pick for set championships because of that. Because the problem is the Green Steel punishes you so hard for a slight misplay, and you lose the game nearly instantly. And the red-purple player, that's to be said, has to play everything perfectly to have a chance, and then it's like 50-50, I think. Or close to 50-50 as it can get. But the red purple has to play everything perfectly, and the green steel not necessarily.
I find with green steel as well, it's how, even for the deck that I play, how dramatically different the matchup is to anything else. Like, if I want to give you a rundown of how to beat anyone, I'd say ramp to dime and win. Green steel, okay, I'll forget about the dime for now because we won't be there for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
mind.
don't play your Smee. I know I've told you to play your Smee turn 2. Do not do that because you need cards in your hand, and let the Storm Rage on is just going to take that out. And it's just like how dramatically different this one matchup is compared to all of the others. Like, it's so insane.
And it's really interesting because talking about the red-purple matchup into green steel, just last week, the first session was Artabax and we were working with Lorcana Villain. He went off to the influencer content creator set championship they just had at Disney headquarters in London here, and we were trying to get him ready for the green steel matchup. He felt like he needed some practice there with red-purple. And the first thing I kind of said to him was, if I could give you any short bit of advice, just try to do nothing for as long as possible. And that, bend that a little. You do need to brawl the Diablo. Think very carefully about if something is worth having -1 card in hand. If it doesn't immediately draw you a card, and it doesn't immediately answer something that is a threat now, you probably don't want to play it. And there are plenty of turns across these matchups for red-purple where the best thing to do is just as little as possible. Lots of like hard casting friends, that sort of thing, and committing nothing to the board, sitting there, creating boards where you blank all of green steel's removal because you're not playing anything unless it's a rabbit or a maleficent. And it's such a different way of playing the game. It takes such a long time to sink into your head because, we've had sets and sets of these similar lines with red purple that you do have to really adapt and do a little bit less, or at least, if you're going to keep doing as much as possible, you better be sure you can get maximum value from every card, because the -1 card in hand that they represent is a real threat to you.
Could think red purple would be the most played deck in Bochum. I don't know how you think about it.
Yeah, and that was a question I wanted to ask, actually, was sort of the most, what decks you think are going to be most represented there. We spent a long time talking about most of the big four and a little bit about purple steel as well. I would be surprised if it was anything other than red purple as the most represented deck, and that's comes down to the cost considerations for green steel and things like that as much as anything else. If you're going to need a solid plan into it, do you have either of you have any thoughts to the contrary on most represented decks? Anything that you think is going to be up there with it?
I think it's still close between red purple and green steel as most played deck, but I don't know.
I think it is worth mentioning the sort of practical side of green steel cost a lot of money.
That's
so
true.
You're going to have a lot of top end players who will fork out the money because they just do it to TCGs. But someone who's like, I really like Lorcana. I live in Germany. I'll probably come to the regional then, and I'll bring the deck I play at locals. It's probably going to be, one of the other three, which average around $200, $300, don't they?
Yeah.
And you would have built them up over sets anyway. But yeah, I think maybe in top cut representation, green steel and red purple fly through because they both seem to do all right versus red blue, and blue steel either tops an event or it doesn't turn up. I think it's someone said that to me the other day or today, and I kind of agree with that. It seems to do either really, really well, or it just doesn't seem to turn up.
I completely agree with the sentiment about green steel, and that's kind of one of the problems I've been having with it, because that is the deck that I've been playing this set. It's what I've stuck with. I've tried various iterations of it. I was on a sort of higher curve version with Morph for quite a while and saw great results with that, and then all of a sudden that just started losing for reasons I can't put my finger on, other than that people just kind of realized they could just be prepared me. It was fine. And yeah, I've been tinkering with lots of different builds of it since then. But we had a conversation, a few people in Discord a couple of weeks ago, and the analogy that I landed on that made the most sense was, if any of you have ever played MOBA games like League of Legends, Dota 2, that sort of thing, there was always the concept of certain heroes or champions that were, people would call them pub stompers. They were, you wouldn't see them in competitive, they weren't meta, but they were so good against randoms, unorganized randoms, it would just... And that's really where I put green steel. If you practice all day with green steel into very accomplished red-purple opponents, for example, which is supposed to be one of your good matchups, they're going to beat you quite a lot. Then you start thinking, is this deck actually that good? Well, against the average opponent, yes, it absolutely is. Those openings, they play themselves, and they are so good at panicking and shutting down just the average player on really anything. Your blue-red and your blue-steel matchup can both be rough. Red-purple is meant to be sort of like your freebie on paper. Well, surely it just beats you. You just bucky them and you win. Well, turns out not if they know what they're doing, not if they're very well practiced.
Yeah.
There is a way of there's a pattern to play against the deck that does beat it, and then you kind of sit back thinking, well, what are my good matchups? You play against someone who's on amber steel, and you think, oh, I also lose to this because I can't get under a turn 1 Cinderella on the draw.
With the blue steel into green steel, people have sort of labelled it as this thing that just beats green steel. It doesn't. I lose a lot. If they have the nuts, they're just going to win. I don't know what more I can do there. I don't think blue steel is that complicated a deck, but it apparently is. The fact is, it is. Yeah. I think maybe I've just played enough of it that you sort of muscle memory a lot of the turns. But I don't think I'm a very smart player, but I seem to play it quite a lot. But you can play that matchup completely wrong. You can be like, I'll just set up my quill and put everything in quill. Oh, wait, they've made me discard 2 cards and I'm empty-handed now. And it used to be you could do that. You could ramp down and throw a Tinkerbell out, but now they've got they've got Long Came Zeus, but they've got we didn't talk about Bruno and stuff. They've just got so many big removals. You can't even ramp down to things. So you really have to sort of lock in to that matchup.
This set, I've been playing lots of green steel and constantly thinking, I think I'm making myself a good amount worse at this game. I think I'm unlearning good practices. I think I'm getting worse. I'm making more foolish decisions, not thinking ahead as much. I'm looking for opening hands that win the game instead of actually trying to navigate a interactive game between 2 players. And it feels like that's a real factor, is that because it pushes such counterintuitive play patterns for you and your opponent, you have removed yourself from the status quo of the game, and as such are getting no reps with it. And you guys that have played blue steel or red purple will be much better when this set ends, or when someone bans Bucky or something, because I'll be sat there thinking, oh, guess I'll play hyper aggro. Something like that.
You mentioned that about Bucky, and that there is that solitaire game mode where it's just I'm keeping this going and you're going to discard and whatever happens. But with the 2 dime decks, whenever they get paired, I put it down to this because I was testing it the other day quite a bit, and it's like you're both playing a game of solitaire, and the game it's like solitaire but getting to dime and tapping it is the win. But every so often you sort of look at your mate's solitaire and mess with his cards a little bit. And you play your grab your swords, you play your be prepared, or you play your let it go, and then you get back to your game of solitaire, trying to get to the dime and just tapping it, and it's so uninteractive. It's so weird. It's so, and you're not even questing because you're just thinking about getting to dime. It's so strange. I'm an absolute menace for this right now, and I think I've posted my final list for Sword Champs about 5 times now, because it is, you post it and then you go and play, and you're like, oh god, I forgot how badly green still beats me when I don't put this card in my deck. So you put it in, and then you go play red blue, and it's like, oh, I forgot, but that does that as well. And you're just chasing these techs a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about these top meta decks, and we're kind of coming towards the end of our allotted time. Last thing I want to ask you both: any sleepers, any sort of outside decks that you think we might see? The first 2 challenges in Lille and in Atlanta, we saw some very unexpected decks take it down. Any sleepers on your radar that you're watching out for as we go into Bochum?
Of course, anything aggressive can be really successful because the lists get very greedy now. The red purple list cut their 1-drops. Blue steel, I think Smee is better against aggro than Argus or something. The lists get very greedy to beat the other meta decks.
One list that people are talking about is from the content creator set championships that happened in the UK. Speci won with the purple steel, aggressive build with 1-drop Maleficent again. Made it look pretty good and didn't drop a game.
And I saw the list and I really think that 1-drop Maleficent is the key, because that is the card that punishes your opponent just for not playing characters the first 2 turns, and you won't recover from that most of the time. And that's the punishment for the meta shifts we do. I think.
A lot of people, because I dropped Captain Hook, and I've dropped it because what I replaced it with is Argus, so it gives me more advantage of the meta. But as I say, store champs, it brings anyone from any walk of Lorcana, and if they just play a Maleficent, a certain amount of lore on the draw and even on the play, just because I've gone so heavy on the meta. So I still think Captain Hook, he rightfully could have a place in the deck because you might just get turned sideways and you're out of Swiss already, and you don't even get a chance to play the meta decks.
One of those considerations that we've hit now that we've got 4 sets of cards is the things that you're cutting are not bad cards, right? They were all in your deck for a reason to start with. You are cutting good cards because you think that they're situationally not as useful to you, or you're less likely to run into the situations where they are good. And Captain Hook is sort of the prime example. This is a good card that does what Blue Steel wants to do. Whether it has room for it is like completely up for debate, but it's sort of like, as things keep moving on, you'll see this more constant rotation of cards in and out, because you have to, you've got situational cards for every situation, and sometimes decks that disappeared like aggro will suddenly pop back up and you'll lose, and you think, oh god, how do I beat it? Oh right, I remember how I beat it for 3 sets in a row. Just play Captain Hook and they lose. Great, we'll get those back in.
I'm excited. I was a bit surprised then that Artabax also went for the aggro, because that was going to be my pick for sleepers, and I thought we were going to pick different ones. But I literally, on my screen right now, I'm looking at a Amber Amethyst deck list. Really good fun, actually.
That's how you punish a format where everybody stopped playing every kind of effect, like Lyle. And there's no Pirate's Life or anything. Nobody fears reaching that level whatsoever. So everything that answers that is gone.
My favourite deck was, it still is, as much as I love Blue Steel, Amber Amethyst. I love aggro. I loved aggro in other card games. It didn't ever feel that strong in Lorcana. Yeah, I think if 50% is like red purple and red blue, or even more is going to be that because of how popular red purple is, you have such a good matchup spread there. And then, as I say, like, okay, Blue Steel might have its babooms and it will ramp into Tinkerbell, but you're going to get a thing questing for a couple turns because they won't have any 1-drops. And maybe if you can manage that matchup a bit better, Green Steel probably is going to beat you, but hey, that's fine. I think it's got a decent shot. And we can't not honorary mention Towman Purple's location deck.
I didn't test it or play against it, but I trust Harlan. He's a very, very good player, so I think it makes sense, the location thing, because we are greedy, like you mentioned. No one plays crabs anymore and something.
If you tell any player you can have a 4/4 and a 1/8 location, or an 8-cost location, 8 health, location on the board on turn 3, if you told any player that, they'd be like, how do I do that? I want that. That is just really good. You can't argue that's a bad play.
That directly appeals to me, and is the sort of thing that when I see it, I think, okay, I'm about to go all in on this. Of course, when I play it, what happens is you have none of the right cards in your opening hand, and you draw just in time on turn 7 with no cards in it.
Yes.
You don't bother to watch Towman Purple play it or learn it at all. You just pick it up and you go, oh, I couldn't play this. Not like I've learned how to mulligan it.
Really, really interesting deck, and totally speaks to what we were discussing before about, as you get this insular metagame of 3 to 4 decks, well, 4 in the case today, mostly, teching really heavily for each other. One of them, in Green Steel, is more proactive, we can say, in that it's doing a lot earlier on in the game. The others are all pretty greedy and getting increasingly greedy amongst themselves, spotting those gaps in the metagame. Hold on a minute, none of these lists, outside of the ones that play Maui, can reliably answer a location. Even the ones that play Maui can't answer it if it comes into play on turn 3. And that is just, really creative deck building. And like you say, whether you're doing that through playing loads of 2-lore 1-drops, which seems fine with how greedy people are being, or maybe better than it has been, there are windows to do different things, which is great. We're way over time, but it's so easy to do it when I'm talking to you guys, 'cause it's always a lot of fun. I do want to put you both on the spot, and I will join in myself before we wrap up. Pick your deck to win the challenge in Bochum, and why not? We'll do one more. Why not also the deck that you think will win the most set championships? And we'll check the data. I've just seen Lorcana Villain in the chat. He will gather the data.
Oh yeah, he's got that. I love that little community thing he does. I think all of the top 4. One of them will run hot. I don't think I can pick. One of them's going to run hot. If you talk to the people who've won in the past for set 4, they just ran. They got a really good run. you know, they of course perform very well. They're very good players, and then they run hot. So if I had to
Yep.
pick, I think a red-purple player this time is going to run hot and just
Cool.
Oh,
miss
thank
the green
you, thank
steals.
you.
Yeah, and he's sat right here. Yeah, and he's sat
Here he
right
is.
here. Yeah.
Future champ.
Yeah, I could have picked red, purple, or green steel, but you know what? I'm going to pick red, purple. I think.
Don't back me, dude. Bad call. Yeah,
It's
totally.
it's funny because you say red purple and I wanted to say blue steel.
Oh, backing each other's horses.
For me, it's blue steel, red blue, red purple are hard to say which is the best of these three. But green steel is a little worse for me right now because blue. I tested a lot against my girlfriend and against blue red. I don't know maybe I'm just bad or so, but I don't know what I can do against blue red. One Hiram and I think I lose the game. I don't know. It just feels so bad. I don't know if I played wrong. I will surely do play it wrong, but I think a very experienced red blue player will 2-0 green steel a lot. I don't know.
I agree. There are plenty of situations where it does feel like that straight up loses you the game. There are more things that have to go right for you as green steel to win that game. You have to need to have a good draw. You need them to probably miss at least like one vital piece, whether it's an early item or their Hiram's a little delayed or something like that. Or you need them to make a mistake, like slamming a quill on turn 3 and starting to quill off stuff into the inkwell. And against a good player, like you say, you cannot rely on those things happening, and it starts to feel like a pretty brutal matchup. It's winnable, but I think there's more pressure on you to have the stars kind of align a little bit. No, I'm going to back green steel. I think it will have a big showing by number, and I think across these fields you need to run pretty hot, and it's good at running hot. You've got a nice bit of luck-based upside.
It's
cool.
good possible.
Well, we're way over time as we always are. But it's been a lot of fun talking to you both, as always. Thank you both for your time, and thank you for the great chat. I wish you both all of the luck in your set championships, and to Artabax in Bochum, and to myself in Bochum also.
Don't stay up too late on the first night.
And yeah, thank you to everyone watching. You can always find us over on the 20 Law Pro Discord server if you're looking to ask any questions or want to talk more about any of these decks. Great threads for all of those there. Artabax for having us on the Twitch channel as well. And I'm sure we'll be back with another show soon.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.